Last time, we zoned out our densest area yet, and of course, made a few mistakes along the way. Today, we're going to build out a vineyard, but first, we need to figure out what is going on with our population and demand. We've got a lot of simulating to do, so let's just jump right in. Alright, let me quickly describe the problem. Our population growth is having some very aggressive challenges to say the least. 1 minute, we're getting 2 to 300 people per hour. Next, we're losing that amount. Now, from what I've seen, this has to do with the limited external connection. We only have one. Being honest, I really don't want to run a second underground road. I've tested a few different things out, like adding a port, but we get into the red very quickly, so we can't afford it. I've tried increasing the speed limits on all the roads, and that actually kind of helped, but not as much as I'd like. And to get to the heart of the problem, we can't expand our services if our population is going through such massive ups and downs, because we will go bankrupt. Now, with that said, I figured out somewhat of a band-aid. One, by adding in more parking, like a significant amount of parking, our population growth was like crazy. Although this did end up rebounding just slightly, but really the biggest one was letting it simulate, which I did from February to May. It doesn't really seem all that long, but in real life, it was about an hour. Also added an elementary school to try and increase demand, but I don't really know if that worked. Okay, it's been sitting here for about an hour and I want to move forward. So let's go fix our taxation. I dropped it down to negative 10%. Don't mind me, just trying to induce some demand. We'll reduce our commercial demand just a tiny bit. Probably give all of them a slight bump down. And then for our services, let's just bring up healthcare just a tiny bit as well. And everything else is looking good except for our fire and rescue, but we only have one building anyways. For our budget, everything's pretty solid, but I think it's time we pay off our loan. It's been keeping me up at night. There we go. Now, let's finally build out our vineyard. Now, one of the comments suggested replacing this farm with the vineyard, and honestly, I really like the idea, although I want to be very careful here. I've been practicing a very specific execution on this, and I've been trying to master it so I can execute it really well. But I have a suspicion that the steep terrain here probably won't work well with what I want to do, but I still want to give it a shot. So first things first, let's get rid of our farm building here, and we'll get rid of this little low density housing that I added. It kind of felt like a farm almost, or like a farmhouse. Then let's just send this road just up a bit more, and we'll create kind of two stubs, I guess. One stub for parking, one stub for our main building. And then we don't actually have parking unlocked yet, so we'll have to unlock it. And it almost feels wrong to put a pavement parking lot on a dirt road, so we'll just upgrade this as well. We need some sort of main building, and honestly I think we could just use the agriculture hub level 5 for that main building, and it's definitely doing a bunch of things to the terrain that I'm already not excited about. And I didn't like the previous building, so I swapped to this one. It kind of feels like that house in the back could be a dining place, or maybe where you go do wine testing. And this is the part where it's going to hurt the most. I'm going to have to do a significant amount of grading, so we're just going to slope up and down. Now, in terms of the method that I'm going to use to build this out, I'm still practicing it. I just created it not that long ago, so you're going to have to bear with me for a bit. I have the idea in my head, and I think I can make it work. It just depends on whether I can execute it or not with the current mod set that I have available to me. Magnolia County is a bit limited on its surfaces and net lanes, whereas if this was Ashland, I already know what surfaces and net lanes I'd use specifically for this build. Either way though, we're going to work with what we have. I'm going to try and draw these in and see if I can get it to feel like a very natural vineyard. And you know what? I take it all back. I want to practice this on a very specific area first, which is a bit more flat. See if I can get it good there, because if I can get it to look good there, then I know I can get it to look good over here as well. And that's right here by our farms, or I guess where we designated farms to be. We're going to delete this road right in the middle because it's going to mess with what we want to do. And then we're going to add in our main building. And I think I like this area better anyways, because we can run a road up the hill. We can have a hotel, maybe a pool, maybe a tennis court or two. So it'll be a little bit nicer. Now we're just going to add in our net lanes again, and I want to start messing around with this and see if I can get it to come to life. And I think this is the most important part. It's figuring out which surfaces go in it, and I think we could probably use not this sand surface, but this one as either a walking trail or maybe where the actual bushes will grow. But I almost want to use the agricultural surface as well. So let's add in our plants and we'll swap them up and see what it looks like. Now, the reason why I selected this bush was because I don't really like it and I pretty much never place it, which means we can recolor it without having any repercussions. And maybe we go for more of a dark green or maybe more of a light green. We could even add a purple color, maybe like grapes. This is probably something I'll decide though at the end of the build when we have all of our bushes in. This is definitely closer. It's still not there yet, but it's definitely closer. And the problem is the space in between our agriculture surface, like the sand surface, is just too big. We're wasting way too much space where we'd be growing grapes, so let's delete this and just make it a bit tighter. Okay, now that's much, much better. You can tell that kind of walking path with a sand surface is just tightened up so much more. Now I need a barrier so that I don't get too close, and I'm going to use this fence, kind of like the low industrial fence. To me, it reminds me more of a farm. And the white net lanes definitely don't help, but it does feel like it's slowly coming together. All right, and after spending way too much time stretching out surfaces, we finally have the pretty much finished product. Still have to delete the net lanes and add in the plants, but for the most part, I think this turned out better than I thought it would. There's a few things that worry me in the overall design, and I'm not so sure I'm in love with that sand surface. I really think maybe it should be a grass surface instead. But honestly, I'm just going to keep moving forward because you can't get stuck fixating on one detail. Details can change. The overall build will never be finished unless you just do it though. So I'm going to add in our bushes. Maybe we'll add in a tree. It really depends, but I think we're just going to go for the bushes, to be honest. All right, now let's go down to the ground level and let's get a feel for this. And it's missing something. I wish I could add in those little sticks that keep the trees up or the bushes up. That would be really nice. You know what? I don't think it's awful. That's for sure. It's not awful. Definitely improvements that can be made over time. And now to delete all of the net lanes. And that's significantly better. You think I'd be able to do this better since I live right near a massive hub for wine and vineyards. Like, you think this would be kind of my specialty almost, but I've never been to a vineyard and I don't drink wine. So I'm just kind of eyeballing this from a satellite view. I think maybe if we change the time of day, that does look better. The shadows make it look much, much better. Now let's just add a lone oak tree, and along the sides of the fence, we'll also add some trees. I was tempted to go over some very colorful bushes, but I think that might stick out and compete with the vineyard just a little bit too much. If we go with some basic trees, I feel like it'll fit the area pretty well. Now I'm wondering, what would a very light green look like? Just by the preview right there, it kind of looks like lettuce or like a neon lettuce, but let's click play on the actual game so they'll all update. Ooh, that does not look good at all. That makes me feel like I'm kind of at a lettuce neon light show. This time, let's just make it darker. Compared to the original color set, I do like this darker green a bit more. I've taken some time to just stare at it. You know what? I'm fine with it for now. We're going to move forward and build up more of our hotel. But before we do that, we have something even more important. We have to fix our roof colors and make sure they're accurate. It was one of the most requested things in the comments, and I completely agree. Sometimes when you recolor something, you can copy and paste the exact same color, but it still doesn't translate over to the other building correctly. For example,
consider capital.
Consider using one hex code for two different buildings. The orange color or the color that you use can be completely different on both buildings, even though it's the exact same hex code. I think that's just due to the building mesh, but I hope that looks better. If it does, please let me know. If it doesn't, also let me know. And we're going to move forward and build out a resort. So for our hotel / resort type building, I'm just going to go with the 5-star country club, I believe it's called. Oh, 5-star country hotel. And we're going to place this just slightly up the hill. Oh no. And that's going to do some very, very rough things to our terrain. And I wish it didn't have to. Yeah, that's pretty rough. That's really rough. But you know what's not rough? The sponsor for today's video. Go Nuts Donuts, the best donuts in town. They've got crepes, crawlers, and creamy, crazy, crunchy critters. It's a full-on horror show at Go Nuts Donuts. Bet you won't last 5 minutes. I need help. I've spent so much time listening to the Cities Skylines 2 radios that I feel like I'm going insane. When the game first came out, I probably listened to them on repeat, and I'd never even thought to turn them off, and now it's like stuck in my head. Anyways, I've messed with the terrain pretty bad here. It's just the cliff was so massive that something kind of had to be done, and that was just the best that I think I can do. So we'll probably leave it there. I'm going to rotate this just a bit though to improve the views that you'd get from the building, and then we're going to send a road right up the mountain and right up to the building. Then it only makes sense if this is a paved road, we might as well change this dirt road into a paved one as well. Now, ideally, we add some type of park here. I'd like to go for a tennis court, so let's go unlock the sports parks, and we might unlock large sports parks after. Let's get this placed in, and of course, I forgot this asset is massive, and if we place it down the mountain, we still have to do a bunch of terrain work, and I don't want to really do that. I feel like it's going to ruin the kind of feeling of this area, but we can place it just slightly up the hill a bit. And the only way this makes sense to me is if we add just a bit more value. So I'm thinking after we place the tennis court, we'll also place a community pool. Actually, let's go back on that really quickly. Let's place the community pool first and then the tennis court. And I just realized I haven't checked our power consumption and our output in a very, very long time. Let's take a quick look at that. So, wow, we're using pretty much 100%. We're losing 5% to lack of sunlight. And that makes me believe, is it because we have clouds enabled? What if we just turn the clouds just down ever so slightly? Yeah, it didn't do anything. Probably it'd take more time to actually like simulate out. But I think what we can do in the meantime is just improve this. So we're going to go and set our budget up just a bit higher. Let's say 110%. No, let's say 120%. Let's give a lot of wiggle room just in case. Then let's quickly add in our tennis court. And I'm going to get rid of the current red surface. And I'm going to replace it with Sully's gray surface. Then I went through and just added the vanilla curb net lane around the building. I feel like it just makes it look so much nicer. And the parking we've added down here just isn't enough. I feel like the entire city is coming here right now to park. So we're going to add in a little bit more parking in very different areas. Going to try and spread this out. I don't want too much, but obviously we still need somewhere to park. Now I feel like the sand surface is honestly just missing something. So I want to replace all of them with grass, just get a feel for it and how it looks. And we'll also do the riverbed texture as well. And here's the grass surface. Honestly, I'm not sold on it either. still feels like something is missing. And honestly, it just feels like it's very, very, very flat, which kind of bugs me. We could do this golden sand base, and I almost might like it better than the other sand surface, but again, it's still the same thing pretty much. There's not a very big difference, but it does kind of feel a little bit more textured, a little bit more shaded, I guess. Or we use the riverbed texture, and I like it a lot. In fact, I use it all the time. But right here, and those rocks they kind of don't fit in. It doesn't feel right for a vineyard, but I do like it. Or we mix it up completely and just have, I don't know, a pattern of 3 repeating. I don't know if I like that though either. Honestly, right now, I think I'm just going to leave it with the sand surface. And in the meantime, if I find something that looks a little bit better, then I'll come back and change it. Really, I don't want to get too fixated on one area because we still have a whole entire map to develop. I do have a plan to kind of detail everything else very thoroughly once most of the development is done. But until then, it's all about moving forward and just getting the key areas developed and done. With all of that said, we do have a few things to fix around the map before we start the next episode. And I noticed our population's at 5,200, which is amazing. And somehow we're making $30,000 an hour. I totally blanked on that. That's also great. And I hope it stays there because then we can start adding actual services, which is really what I want to do. I want to add in that port so bad. Look what's going on over here. So we got accidents left and right. Okay, that's great. And we have a traffic jam right here. This one should be really easy to solve because I'm not going to go crazy or complex. I'm going to keep it so simple. It's not even funny how simple it's going to be. So in that junction, if you wanted to turn left, you would have to slow down all traffic. If you wanted to just go right and keep going through and follow the road along, you would have to wait for the person who wants to turn left. So all we'll do is just add in, I guess, what I'll consider to be a slip lane right here. And we'll just connect it right up and then we'll make it a nice free flow movement. Now we'd only make things worse unless we added in a second lane. So we'll add it right along here. And of course, I should have added the second lane first before adding our slip lane in. And I just broke water, power, and sewage. So I'll need to get all these things fixed. Let's upgrade this entire 1-lane road. And I don't like how I'm kind of tightening this curve up just a bit. So I'll want to see what that looks like. But that connects properly into our road and looks pretty nice. Now let's quickly fix water and power and sewage. And then I want to see a car go around this road just to make sure it's not insane. Okay, now let's click play. And of course, we're getting a transport truck as our first vehicle to drive around this bend. I don't think this road would be for them. In fact, I don't think transport trucks would make a lot of sense for this island. Cargo ports would be much cheaper, much more efficient. And for this island, that's really what they'd be looking for. Okay, let's take a quick trip around our crazy little bend and let's see how bad it is. You know, it's not that bad. I expected much, much, much worse. And honestly, that was fairly reasonable from the perspective that I was seeing it at. And we still have a small backup over here. So I think I'm going to remove this extra lane that I was testing out for demand. And I'm just going to turn it back into a 2-lane highway just because this would be extremely dangerous to have. It's what, the length of 3, 4, 5, 10 meters max, and that's your turn lane. Okay, now I want to do a bit of junction control because I'm seeing some insane things. Cars are just getting over out of nowhere. The red car right there, right there. It's just like the second they get onto the 3-lane asymmetric, they just immediately swap lanes and start sending it. So we're gonna just fix the traffic control up here. And for priority, I'm going to make this the priority. This is the yield. And I hope they actually listen. And this is insane. Now we're losing 550 people per hour. Out of nowhere. We were just at what, 5,200 population, I think? And now we're back down at 4,700. It's kind of insane. I want to make sure that we're adding our port really soon. But I can't do it if our population crashes and then therefore our budget crashes. and we go bankrupt. Like, we need some form of a stable budget, or we need a big backlog of money. We have 1.3 million, which isn't really too bad at all, but I think the port, it's pretty expensive. The upkeep is pretty expensive, and we'll need to add a small little town to support it, maybe some small local services, but it'll need something. And also, we need to take care of garbage soon. I've just been ignoring it, and we have 3 buildings that are filled up, and eventually that's going to cause some really big problems with our death wave. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. And to do that, we need a stable budget. So far, it's looking pretty stable. We're still making 30K per hour, which is perfect. If need be, I'll let it simulate for another hour or two. We'll build up a nice set of money, and then we'll use that to just expand. And if we have to, we'll just take a loan and hope we don't go bankrupt. Finally, off camera, I did a bunch of detailing. I was trying to get really granular with it. So if I'm looking at this building right here, it had a very ugly surface. It was super clean and bright. I made it really dirty. This is kind of further away from our waterfront, so I didn't want it to be super clean. This wouldn't be your first choice of hotel, more like your second or third. Added a bunch of little grass textures all around. I think it makes it look a lot nicer and pop a bit more. Added all of these plants and these bushes and these flowers. For some buildings, I arbitrarily decided that they were older and they've been on the island for a lot longer, and so they were significantly dirtier. For some of the roads, I just added some tire marks, added some basic cracks along it, did this little red surface because I noticed they have it in Elba. This was the building we were talking about before, and you can tell it's definitely a bit dustier and dirtier. It's not so pristine and clean. Over here, here's a nice little trail. Didn't want it to be too fancy, but I still wanted it to be nice because, I mean, come on, it's right near our waterfront. Why wouldn't it be at least somewhat nice? In my head, this is like one of the oldest buildings in this entire area. Because of that, I just destroyed it. I made it as dirty as I possibly could. And then I spent about probably an hour just running around in first person mode, checking it all out. Sometimes when you put in a lot of effort for things, you just gotta take the time to enjoy what you did. And that was this last hour for me. I almost forgot. We need to add in some names because we finally have a strong list of them, and we're just gonna add them into our different districts. And it just looks so much better already with these new names. Thank you everyone for suggesting them. I was getting tired of names like Beechwood and Parktown. They're so basic. Anyways, that is a wrap. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment. It really does help with the channel. Other than that, next episode, I'm really hoping to add in the port and something a bit different, something a bit special. And we'll see it. We'll see it in the next episode.